It's whining, complaining, sad, irresponsible.
Sad and irresponsible. I'll tell you what is sad and irresponsible, and that is the fact that the NDP take their orders from their boss.
Point of order,
named Justin Trudeau.
This is part 2 of an emergency meeting that was called for the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology, which was held on July 31st to discuss what to do following the Ethics Commissioner's report regarding Annette Verschuren violating ethics laws by handing out taxpayer money to her own companies. We strongly recommend that you watch part 1 of this video first for full context.
I want to keep my comments brief. I understand I'm the last speaker on the list unless someone raises their hand. But I've listened very carefully to everything that my colleagues have said, and I want to underscore the importance of not only this being important, an issue that needs to be fully examined at this committee, but also urgent. And as my colleague Mr. Cooper has alluded, in my view, I share the same view that the Ethics Commissioner's report was narrowly focused. It underscores what we have heard by way of various reports in national media, that the level of corruption with this Justin Trudeau government and how they misuse taxpayer money is merely the tip of the iceberg. It's not a day that does not go by, Mr. Chair, that I hear from followers on my social media who are thanking the opposition parties, particularly the Conservatives, and it's Conservatives, not cons, to correct the characterization of Mr. Badaway.
Just 1 second, Mr.
A comment
Brock.
like that in the House would have been met with a strong rebuke.
Relevance, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brock, just 1 second. I have a point of order from MP Badaway.
Relevance.
In reference to us.
Excuse me, Mr. Badaway. I can't hear your point of order, and I think the boom is not properly placed.
Point of order, relevance, Mr. Chair.
I've ruled on this many times before. I give quite a bit of leeway. I've done that for you, MP Badaway. I'll do the same for Mr. Brock. You can pursue. And as a reminder, colleagues, we're on the sub-amendment. I think we know where every party stands at this point. In the interest of time and efficiency, we could probably let this debate go to a vote at some point. So, Mr. Brock, the floor is yours.
Without further interventions from the Liberals, Mr. Chair, I'm sure I can finish my remarks in a minute to 2 minutes. So to get to my point, I hear constantly about the government misusing taxpayer money. And the comments I receive on social media daily is, great, you've exposed the scandal, as you continue to do, but when are we going to get our money back? And the Liberals already have passed a timeline in which to report to the House as to how they were going to recoup the monies with the Arrive Can scandal. That deadline had long passed in the month of June. And I'm sure, and that's close to $60 million. We've got close to $500 million of wasted money that went to the preferred interests of a hand-picked chair by Justin Trudeau, who should have known better, should not have relied upon the advice of a lawyer who was also conflicted, should have obtained advice from an independent legal counsel. She did not. Given her business acumen, she should have taken the appropriate steps. She willfully and deliberately chose to break the code of ethics as set out under that particular act, and she was found not guilty not once but twice, Mr. Chair. Now, this will be another debate for another time and perhaps in a different committee. The penalty is $500 per infraction, $1,000 for essentially stealing close to $500 million. This is what happens when you are closely connected to the Liberal Party of Canada, more particularly when you're closely connected to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. You get rewarded with zero consequence. On the issue of consequence, I hope the RCMP are following this meeting very carefully. I hope they have reviewed the Ethics Commissioner's report very carefully. I hope they've reviewed the Auditor General's report very carefully, because there's criminality involved here. When Ms. Verscheren appeared before the Ethics Committee several months ago, I warned her point blank at this point, without even getting into all the details that had been uncovered, just the stories that came out in the national news at that point about the breaches of the ethics rules and the conflict of interest that was overlooked. I warned her at that point she should lawyer up. I advised her about the potential criminal charges involved in the actions that she has taken, the breach of trust, the fraud, potential forgery. All of these issues are live issues that need to be explored. But we need to find out how deep the rot really is at SDTC and what really that number is in terms of governmental waste. And that is why we will support the motion brought by my colleague, Mr. Perkins. We believe 2 meetings are appropriate of 2 hours each for those 2 witnesses, but there is a high degree of urgency here, Mr. Chair, and it cannot wait till Parliament resumes in the middle of September. The public needs to know exactly what the true value is and what steps we are going to take as a committee to ensure accountability. Because, Mr. Chair, accountability and good governance does not and should not take a vacation.
Well said, Mr. Brock.
Amen.
That was really good. You know, one of the things that I noticed he said was that he's having people contact him on social media. How do we get the money back? And we see comments like that as well. We also see, when are people going to be held responsible? When are people going to be thrown in jail? And, you know, it was very confusing to me. A little while ago, we did a video about how the RCMP laid charges for someone who had
Defrauded the government of about 200 grand.
Yeah, because they had like overbilled their contracting hours. And we're like, yes, this is a win, right? And a lot of comments were very upset still and very negative, and it confused me as to why. And I think I understand now. It's because it almost feels like the little fish are the ones being caught, and the big fish are able to go and steal $400 million worth of taxpayer dollars, and there's no consequences. But the truth is that there's no consequences yet. I honestly believe that Larry Brock and the Conservatives are going to hunt these cases down like dogs, and they're not going to stop until the Canadian public receives justice.
Well, and here's a message for the Conservatives. If you truly want to heal this country, if you truly want to earn back the trust of Canadians, because even though a lot of Canadians are going to be voting for Conservatives, most of those Canadians don't trust politicians. So if you want to really earn back that trust and restore the faith of Canadians in the government, you need to follow through on this stuff. You need to ensure that people are held accountable. If Annette Verschuren has indeed committed a crime, she should be punished for it. She should go to jail. If Justin Trudeau has indeed committed a crime, pass the appropriate legislation that allows access to cabinet confidence, that allows the RCMP access to that evidence, and he should go to jail if he indeed committed a crime.
Yeah, accountability needs to make a comeback in this country. You know, we see it, we hear it in the news all the time. You know, guy released on bail for this, another guy released on bail for that, then they go and commit more crimes. Like, from the top to the bottom, there is no accountability in this country, and that needs to be brought back. Because
it's and this is call it a public service announcement to the Conservative Party. If you do not, if you say, well, you know, we need to focus on fixing the country, there's going to be a lot of ticked off people.
But I think that is how you fix the country. You bring accountability back.
Agreed. That is part of fixing the country. But otherwise, you're going to have a lot of ticked off people that voted for you, that were hoping, that believed that there was actually going to be something done. And if the perception is that you're going to turn a blind eye to it, well, then what the perception is going to be is that you're no better than Justin Trudeau, and you are enabling him and the people in his government to get away scot-free. That will be the perception. Mark my words. Now, I don't know for a fact that they're going to do that. It's just, this is a friendly PSA as to what will happen in terms of the perception of the Conservative Party if they do that. Now, people like Larry Brock and Michael Barrett and Michael Cooper and Garnet Janice, Stephanie Kuzy, Kelly Block, like all of these people that we've been able to interact with, they are solid MPs. And everything that we've heard from them leads us to believe that they are not going to just let this go. That they are going to be advocating that they pursue this past the election and into committee when the Conservatives take power. As well they should. And you know what? I will even say to the Conservatives, here's an idea. If you're concerned about certain committees having to focus on issues like repealing Bill C-11, repealing Bill C-18, and all of the other gun control and bail and all of that, and if you're concerned that there's not enough committees to deal with that, then I would say create some new committees.
They can create...
they can create whatever they want.
Yeah, they can create temporary committees. I think it was after the 2015 election, but I think it happened in 2016. They spun up a special committee specifically to investigate electoral reform.
Status of women was a temporary committee. So they can absolutely do that to focus on these other issues to ensure that they keep moving forward. So I highly encourage them to think about things like that, because accountability needs to be seen from the very top. And the best way to have people actually believe in accountability in this country is that the person who is held most to account is not the people at the bottom, it's the people at the top.
That's right, lead by example.
This is an important issue. If we hold the meetings during the vacation, people will say that we're trying to do this in a discreet way rather than doing it when everyone's back in September. So personally, I think if we do it, like I said, 3 hours in September, well, I think we could all agree on that. Thank you, Mr. Villemure. Ms. Damoff.
Oh, Pam, MP Damoff, your boom is up.
My apologies. Thank you. I always appreciate what Mr. Villemure brings to the table, and I also appreciate what Mr. Massey was saying about getting to this quickly. And I would ask for the unanimous consent of the committee to withdraw my motion and put forward what Mr. Villemure has suggested, which would be 1 hour with the ethics commissioner and 2 hours, so a 3-hour meeting.
MP Damoff, we'll just proceed step by step. I understand what you're trying to do, but so you're seeking UC to withdraw your sub-amendment. So
That's correct.
Is there UC to withdraw the sub-amendment by MP Damoff? I see that there is. So it's withdrawn. You still have the floor.
Okay, so I would put forward then, Chair, that it would be to sub-amend Mr. Villemure's amendment, that it would be 1 3-hour meeting, which would be 1 hour with the ethics commissioner. And I don't think the other part needs to be amended because it already says 2 hours. So it would just be 1 3-hour meeting and amend 1 hour with the ethics commissioner instead of 2, and it would remain a meeting in September.
Thank you. So we've all heard what MP Damoff is proposing. So sub-amending the amendment by MP Villemure. So for 1 3-hour meeting, basically 1 hour with the ethics commissioner, 2 hours with Verschuren. So I see no more speakers, which I'm quite happy with. We can then proceed to a vote on the sub-amendment. And I will ask the clerk to, I see no one wants to talk. So if it's all clear, we are voting on the sub-amendment proposed by MP Damoff on Mr. Villemure's amendment.
And the vote is on the sub-amendment, Ms. Damoff. Mr. Turnbull.
I support.
Mr. Moff.
Yes.
Mr. Gahir.
In favor?
Mr. Souza.
Yes.
Mr. Badaway.
In favor.
Mr. Perkins.
Opposed.
Mr. Généreux.
Contre.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Mr. Brock.
No.
Monsieur Villemeur.
En faveur.
Mr. Massey.
Oui.
Okay, so the sub-amendment is adopted, which brings us back to the amendment to the motion. So the amendment proposed by Mr. Villemeur, which essentially puts this meeting on SDTC, so this 3-hour meeting as the first item of business when we come back in September. I see no speakers, so I would like, well, Mr. Perkins.
There's been a lot of discussion since I introduced the original motion, so I'll just briefly say, without repeating everything that's been said by my colleagues, the lack of urgency on this large corruption scandal is appalling to me. Like, every time there's a report, whether it's the investigations by various parliamentary committees, whether it's new documents produced by the whistleblowers, whether it was then new testimony from the former president of SDTC, who declared a number of shocking things about the way the board operated. Then we had the incredible Auditor General's report finding almost $400 million misappropriated. Every time there's an investigation, now the ethics commissioner, and we uncover a deeper and deeper and deeper level of conflict of interest, self-dealing, and frankly, feathering their own beds for their financial interest. And the 9 Liberal directors appointed by the Liberals that were outlined in the Auditor General's report. And the minister who cares so much about this unfroze the funds. The fund and the slush fund is now open again. The only difference is they've moved the slush fund to another group headed by a bunch of former retired bureaucrats, which in their testimony before this committee gave zero confidence, or before another committee, zero confidence that they had any ability or idea of how to stop this corruption that's gone on, or that there'll be any new processes. There should not be any spending in this fund going on right now. It shouldn't be happening until all of these reports and are delved into, and we've got more shocking testimony, and we need to get on this, because what's happening is as the Liberals and the Bloc and the NDP don't want to bother doing this for another month and a half to 2 months, money of taxpayers is going out the door to these same companies, in all likelihood in stage 3, stage 4, whatever, of former Liberal directors now still benefiting from their insider job of being on this committee. And so I know everybody's got lots of other things to do. We all do. But I don't think there's anything more important than dealing with the fact that this is 10 times the size of the sponsorship scandal during the Chrétien Liberal government. That was $42 million. This is almost $400 million so far on every investigation. And every time there is a report, the number grows. And it's shocking to me that members of Parliament in this committee think that this isn't of greatest urgency to delve into now with the Ethics Commissioner, that we can wait. We can wait until the House comes back in September, and maybe we'll spare a single meeting. Spare a single meeting to $400 million and growing of taxpayer money that has gone to conflicts of interest and been spent illegally, according to the Auditor General, outside the terms that it was granted to the Green Slush Fund.
You know, these Liberals, NDP and Bloc, they might not care that all this taxpayer money is going out the door, but I'll tell you who does care is voters.
Oh, voters really care.
They need to keep that in mind, because Canadians are watching committee now. Canadians are probably more tuned into politics
than they ever have been.
Yeah. And social media makes that even easier than it has been in the past. And voters care. Voters are watching.
Well, and from what we've seen, I think the number of Canadians that are actually in tune with what is going on with the government is at a all-time historic high. It's never been higher.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Canadians know what committees are. Canadians know who's at the committees. Canadians know the names of members of parliament outside of their riding. Some Canadians know the name of their member of parliament in their riding. A lot of Canadians wouldn't even know that.
Yeah,
and I don't blame them.
Well, I mean, when we first moved to Hamilton, no idea who it was.
Yeah, until he moved in next door. He was like, "Hi, I'm your member of parliament." "Oh, who are you?" Right?
And that's seriously how it went.
But Canadians know what points of order are now. Canadians know what the different functions of government are now. Nobody knew this before. So we are watching, and we are watching with great interest and more than at any other time in Canadian history because A, we have the technology to, and B, we don't like what we see. So I agree with Perkins. Get on this because money is going out the door. And these people who have benefited from the $400 million, they're just, doing their thing. No consequences. But yeah, it can wait.
That there isn't a sense of urgency here to people to stop this and fix it and get to the bottom of it. That they want to wait till the middle of September to give one whole meeting to it. Come on, guys. This is why we oppose the amendments to the meetings, because our desire as Conservatives, why are we having an emergency meeting today? We're having an emergency meeting today because we put forward a request to have these urgent meetings because of the Ethics Commissioner's report that came out last week. And I thought that the Bloc and the NDP thought it was also urgent because they co-signed the letter. But apparently now they come to the meeting and it's not urgent. It can wait. So I would urge members to reconsider their change of heart that's happened in this meeting to support the Liberals in hiding and covering up the corruption in the Green Slush Fund, because that's what it is. More delay is more cover-up. And if you vote for this amendment, in my view, you're voting to continue the Liberal cover-up in the Green Slush Fund.
That was a not-so-subtle shot across the bow, nicking one of their sails on the way by from Mr. Perkins to the Bloc and the NDP.
Well, again, it's because they had discussed this before the meeting started, and it seems they came to an agreement, but as soon as the cameras are rolling in committee, now all of a sudden there's amendments.
Right. And and what he's essentially warning there is, you guys want to take this angle? Fine. Because what the story is going to be is the Bloc and the Liberals don't think it's urgent to investigate $400 million of misspent taxpayer money, and they want to allow the Liberals more time to get their story straight. That's going to be the narrative that's going to be thrown at both the Bloc and the NDP if they don't cooperate, as was apparently agreed to prior to this meeting starting.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. I see no other speaker. No. Oh, Mr. Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to speak for this, especially after that intervention, which is rather unfortunate because the Conservatives actually talked themselves out of one meeting that they would have had earlier had they actually moved appropriately on this. And first of all, I want to acknowledge that what we're talking about here specifically, when you do the math, which has always been the Conservatives' mortal enemy, there's actually 9 business days that we're talking about a difference here, because if we can't get the witnesses in the next 4 weeks, the time between that time period ending and then when we assume our responsibilities back here in the House on that Monday is 9 business days. And so that's what we're talking about as a difference here. And so I think it's pretty rich to actually come here and then chastise ourselves in the Bloc for agreeing to actually have a meeting to sit down with responsibility and in earnest to try to find a path forward, like we promised. When we actually dealt with this issue last to Parliament, we promised that we would return back to this once we got the reports. And we did so immediately when I was contacted right away, and it came over here. But just because the Conservatives are insisting on spending tens of thousands of dollars to have this 9 business days in advance, they try to chastise ourselves in the Bloc for trying to make Parliament work. And that's terribly unfortunate, especially given the fact that these members also filibustered days of this committee last Parliament. So for all their sanctimony about having to get to this right away, we could have actually been doing this work on last Parliament. But what we had last Parliament was the Conservatives filibustering on auto files and other things like that, chewing up this committee, chewing up other committees on a regular basis.
They didn't have the reports last, like when Parliament was still in session, did they?
Nope.
Especially not the ethics one. I recall that coming out recently.
Nope. And definitely not the Auditor General's report. So, Massey, you're falling into, the status of women's committee problem.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, if this was so urgent, it should have been brought to us back in June. Well, the reports weren't available in June. Okay? The reports are fresh.
Yeah, they weren't done yet. What, you just want to say to the Auditor General, hurry up? That's not the way the Auditor General's office works. The Auditor General's office will say, it takes as long as it takes because we're focused on accuracy, not time. That's the answer you'll get. So, you just don't like that, the narrative that Perkins threw at you. And I don't blame you. I wouldn't like it either, but I also wouldn't be in that position.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that narrative made about you.
No. I'd probably be kicked out of the NDP right quick, but I wouldn't even sign up in the first place.
You wouldn't even be in the NDP.
Anyway, let's not even talk about that horrendous nightmare of a scenario.
Not just on an individual aspect for here, submitting multiple motions, multiple places, multiple times, and they did so consistently. And if we want to talk about scandals, I've been around here long enough to see a lot of scandals. I could just list off a whole series of here from the there's the Liberal scandals on certain things, but there's also the Harper administration scandals, everything from electoral fraud to a whole series of different interventions when it comes to Airbus, comes to former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. It could go on and on and on. We could do the relevance, we could do all those different things, but at the same time, we want to get to the subject matter here at place, and that's why we actually sat down here. So the request that we have here in front of us to actually have the 2 meetings in this time frame was even at the sense a little bit optimistic of trying to guarantee that we can get 2 independent witnesses. We actually can get prepared and ready, get House of Commons resources to restart down here, and then on the same time do so when we're looking at basically a week and a half difference of when it can take place. So I don't think it's very unreasonable, and I don't think that the Bloc is playing games on this. I think they came prepared to this meeting to find a solution with an alternative. I've been in discussions with different people, and it's been publicly chastised by the Conservatives to come here and then saying that we're actually in cahoots trying to stop for accountability of this. It's absolutely wrong for every single time we've actually agreed and had these meetings. And I won't let that stand on the public record, because the public record shows that we have been pushing this issue, even when I couldn't get the things that I wanted for the workers. And when we talk about the workers here, the Conservatives have not put forth anything on the whistleblowers here. And we have had testimony the last time we had here, not a single one of the organizations even mentioned the families and the whistleblowers of that. And I tried to actually work to get an amendment in the House of Commons on one of their official opposition days motion, but it was worded in a way that it couldn't allow for that. It was nobody's fault, just the way that it was. But we have families of these members. They just talk about, basically the Liberals and the scandals and so forth and just trying to tar it with that. Well, what about all the workers that actually had to leave their job, had to sign non-disclosure clauses that still haven't been dealt with today?
What the Conservatives are focused on, like it or not, is the big picture of $400 million. That's a lot of frickin' money. That's more money than any average Canadian can even dream of. We don't make close to even making a fraction of that in our lifetimes. That's what they're focused on. So, don't be coming in here angry that you're being painted with this brush when your party, talk to your boss, Jagmeet Singh, is the one putting you in this position every single confidence vote. You're going to get no pity from Canadians, and you're going to get no pity from anyone in the Conservative Party. I can tell you that.
Well, and Canadians are going to watch every time in committee when you guys help the Liberals filibuster, when you make these ridiculous motions and sub-amendments and whatever else you have. Canadians
when you vote to
watching.
shut down committees.
Yeah, Canadians are watching.
And we're tired of it.
What about the workers that couldn't actually carry their pensions over, had to cash out? What about the workers that actually had to find different types of employment? And then the new system that I have in place still doesn't give them the ultimate protection that I want, is that full public service protection as whistleblowers. We have all those issues there. So, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chair, I take offense to the fact that it is characterization that this committee is not working. I take offense to the characterization the NDP and the Bloc are playing games with this, when we came here to do the proper work and do the right thing. So over a few business days, they want to cheapen this entire process down, which is entirely significant. And even if we actually have those things that take place, and we did it within their time frame, you know what happens, Mr. Chair? We can't do anything as a committee till the House resumes anyways. There's very little that we can do until the House resumes with regards to this. We can't bring it to the chamber. We can't do any of those things necessary as well. And so now we have a chance to prepare and get ready and do something actually meaningful. And I think it's unfortunate that they characterize us and to go back in this House of Commons. I guess this is what the Conservatives want, is to go back to a dysfunctional House, the House of Commons. Because on an issue right here, and you look at consistently, even the Liberals have voted consistently to actually have hearings on this. Yes, there's been differences about how we approach it, who gets to come at certain times, the amount of time that's there, but they are on the record as well looking at this issue.
And there you go.
They don't like looking bad in the House. Well, then maybe you guys should stop batting for the wrong team.
Well, and the NDP is like, oh, well, you know, they've been for this. They've been for this. You know, they've had some differences of opinion, but they've been...
It's shameful. This whole thing is shameful. And, you know, the Conservatives don't want to go back to a dysfunctional House because they know that it's bad for Canadians. But you yahoos won't get it together and call a non-confidence vote and allow Canadians to vote for their MPs and to create a House that works for Canadians.
Yeah, because Jagmeet has this delusion that he wants people to be able to, you know, get in the groove of having quote unquote dental care, get in the groove of having pharmacare that isn't going to be in place before October of 2025. Somehow he thinks it will be. And then Canadians are going to wake up and say, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, I want to vote NDP.
He thinks he's the next Tommy Douglas. He really does. He compares himself to Tommy Douglas regularly.
All the time.
It's shameful.
To do that, as we warm up to get back here in September to do hard work that's necessary and to poison the well right away when there's sincere efforts to do so, well, fine. They get their moment of glory, their clips, all those things that they want. But at the same time, they will not get what they want in this committee unless they actually cooperate in the terms of trying to make sure things are going to be done with sincerity, because that's the history of this committee. I'm sticking with it when I go back to make this place work. And if they want to come here and do these types of cheap tactics and games over serious issues, then shame on them. Just because they didn't get a few days of business time that they could actually have it, it's whining, complaining, sad, irresponsible, and shows a lack of class for a party that's supposed to be saying that they're going to be the next government.
Wow.
That was shameful.
Wow.
That was like a temper tantrum.
Whining, irresponsible. Yeah, it's irresponsible not to want to get to the bottom of where the hell $400 million of taxpayer money went.
Like right now, like yesterday. You guys should have done this already.
And to go back to one of the other things he was saying, it's like, oh, it's so hard to set up a committee meeting. We've seen many over the summer.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
It's because they want to be on vacation. They want to be on their ridings. Okay, I do understand to an extent that the MPs want to be present in their ridings so that they can attend events, meet with constituents, like just interact with the general public of their ridings, especially the ones that are going for re-election. But again, though, like, this is so important. As Mr. Barrett has said in previous meetings, like, you know, you jostle some things around, you have some meetings on a different day with your constituents, and you make it to committee because this is important.
You get it done.
And again, they do not need to be there in person. I think it does look better if they are But for many MPs, it's not possible because they live on the other side of the country.
Well, and over the summer, people will understand.
Yeah, people are a little bit more sympathetic about that.
I appreciate what the NDP member has said, but let's be clear. Our original motion, which he's well aware, was to have the meeting within 2 weeks, and to accommodate him, we provided some generosity in going the 4 weeks to get it on his schedule. It could happen in 2 weeks. I'm willing to have this meeting tomorrow, but the member is got a busy schedule, as we all do, and so we're trying to accommodate. So it's totally incorrect to say that we weren't trying to accommodate. Now, what the member has voted for, and what the Liberals have voted for, and what the Bloc has voted for, is to turn 2 meetings or 4 hours of hearings into 1 meeting 2 months from now, almost 2 months from now, to cram it all together and then move on. Now, you can disagree with that classification, but that's the change to our motion that the NDP and Bloc and Liberals are supporting. And that's what I oppose, and I'll leave it there because I still believe that this needs to be dealt with now, not sometime in the distant future.
MP Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little bit taken aback by Mr. Massey's comments. He talked about 9 business days difference. What is he talking about? The motion that Conservatives put forward would provides for hearings, 2 hearings, both involving the Ethics Commissioner and Ms. Verscheren within the next 2 weeks. So this notion that it's 9 business days difference is simply not true. He says that Conservatives have difficulty with math. It seems that he has difficulty with math, with the greatest of respect. And he talks about sad and irresponsible. I'll tell you what is sad and irresponsible, and that is the fact that the NDP take their orders from their boss,
Point of order,
named Justin
Chair.
Trudeau.
Yeah, just one
Point of
second,
order.
MP Cooper. Yes, I'm Dama.
Uh-oh.
That was fighting words.
Cooper's telling the truth, and the Liberals don't like it, so enter
course
Pam
not.
Demoff with a point of order. She shouldn't be talking about that. That's supposed to be private.
So the motion that I was sent, that Mr. Perkins submitted, clearly says 4 weeks. I don't know what Mr. Cooper is talking about, but Mr. Perkins' motion says 4 weeks, which takes us to August 28th.
Pam, stop playing solitaire and pay attention to the meeting. Do you wonder why people send you emails that tell you that they don't like you as an MP? You wonder why. What happened was, before this meeting, the Conservatives and the Bloc and the NDP had discussions over this motion.
Does she know that?
Yeah, they said it.
Okay, so she does know that.
Perkins literally said it like 5 minutes ago. And he said that the original motion that we wanted was hearings within 2 weeks. And then the NDP and the Bloc said, well, you know, how about 4? So the Conservatives said, fine, we'll be flexible, 4. So, Pam, pay attention. And I love that Perkins, brought that up, because it completely rebuts and impeaches Massey's little diatribe there. He's like, oh yeah, it's only 9 business days. Well, hello, the Conservatives initially wanted this within 2 weeks.
Wait, 9 business days, and he was saying, oh, it's just over a week. It's almost 2 weeks if it's 9 business days.
Well, he's saying that 4 weeks was the original motion.
Right.
So that takes us to the end of August, and then Labor Day weekend, and then 9 business days. That takes you to September 16th.
Right, but he said 9 business days was just over a week, is I believe the correct phrase that he used. So it's almost 2 weeks.
And if you add up the days, it is in fact 9 days. So I think, I know that the Conservatives like to deal in misinformation, but let's stick with the facts. The motion clearly says 4 weeks.
Thank you, MP Dama, for your point of order. I tend to agree. Looking at the calendar, it does call for 4 weeks, but Mr. Cooper,
no, very simply, we could be meeting next week if the Conservative motion had passed. We could be meeting the following week.
Point of order, Mr. Massey.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, though, he just agreed with the motion again, so maybe we can get clarification that, insisting that it was 2 weeks when it's not 2 weeks it's 4 weeks. So I hope the member can at least, within 4 weeks, within 4 weeks. So it could happen at the end of the 4 weeks. So we're not talking about 2 weeks.
Tomorrow.
He just stuck his foot in his mouth and he knew it right at the end. He's like, oh, well, it says within 4 weeks. So it could happen at the end of the 4 weeks. And as you heard Perkins say, off mic, could happen tomorrow. But now you don't want it to happen until at least the 16th. So nice try.
Yeah, but it's not. You put it in for 4 weeks, so it means that you're actually willing to do it within 4 weeks.
Thank you, MP Massey.
Not tomorrow, because you want to go to your event.
The reality is within 4 weeks allows for the chair and the clerk to invite witnesses, so chances are of it happening tomorrow are very, very slim.
And we
but Mr.
wanted
Cooper, the floor is yours.
And we wanted it within 2 weeks. That's what we initially wanted, and we were prepared to provide within 4 weeks, but it certainly means that the committee could be at work. So this notion that it's 9 days is nonsense. And what is sad and irresponsible is that the NDP take their marching orders from Justin Trudeau. Here you have $400 million that improperly went out the door, including $330 million to companies in which Liberal insiders padded their pockets. And what are the NDP doing? They're doing the bidding of the Liberals. They're doing the bidding of Justin Trudeau to delay hearings, to delay the ability of this committee to do its work, to hold a lawbreaker, Ms. Verscheren, accountable, to get answers about the 20 additional conflicts that the Auditor General identified that perhaps the Ethics Commissioner ought to start looking into, and to see that taxpayers get a refund, but taxpayers get their money back, as this current Minister of Industry, who professes to be so concerned about this scandal, but did absolutely nothing, as his Assistant Deputy Minister sat in on each and every meeting in which there were 186 conflicts until it hit the media. And then he said, oh, well, I'm now concerned. And then in the face of the Auditor General's report, what does he do? He starts releasing funds back to the very same corrupt Liberal insiders. It's a total and complete racket, and it's disappointing that Mr. Massey is going along with the Liberals to delay the work of this committee, which could be meeting as early as next week, to, as a starting point, hear from the Auditor General and Ms. Verscheren. It's very disappointing.
To address Mr. Villemur's latest comments about the utility of a meeting when Parliament resumes, because presumably people are paying more attention, really belittles the issue that's before this committee right now, is that we've got an explosive scandal that is some 7 times the size of the ArriveCan scandal that I still get commentary on, that Canadians are still talking about, that the government is doing nothing in terms of trying to recoup the lost tens of millions of dollars. And now we've got a scandal that is, according to the deputy minister for industry, is akin to the sponsorship scandal, close to $500 million. If that doesn't cry out for some degree of urgency, I don't know what does. It certainly, in my view, attracts the attention of Canadians. Yes, most Canadians are on holidays right now, but Canadians could be on holidays through the entire year. This scandal strikes at the core of good governance. And what we have right now is a failed Liberal government that simply disregards the interests of the taxpayer time after time after time. I've lost track, Mr. Chair, as to how many active RCMP investigations are currently underway with respect to the actions of this government. So I find it appalling, quite frankly, when my NDP colleague, Mr. Massey, displays his anger and his disgust that we wanted to insist on an earlier meeting. The wording of our motion was abundantly clear. It wasn't after 4 weeks, it was within 4 weeks. We are here in Ottawa today. We are here to press upon our colleagues and to press upon the chair that this matter is of some urgency, needs to be addressed. Yes, I too would like to be back in my community. I've missed two very important events in my community. I'm missing events with my family right now. But the nice thing, Mr. Chair, with our role as politicians, we are politicians for the entire year. Our work doesn't end at the middle of June, and we resume again in September. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can fulfill our obligations on this committee to ensure that taxpayers are receiving good value for their money, and to hold the government to account, and be there for our community as well. So I take offense to some of the comments made by Mr. Massey. We are not playing games here. We all want to get to the heart of the matter, and we want to shed true light on this scandal to find out what exactly has transpired over the last 3 years with the SDTC, and how taxpayers can expect to receive some portion of that money back.
You know, I'm really glad that Brock made this point, because I was going to make it, and I applaud him for making it, is that when you choose to be a public servant as a member of parliament, that doesn't just count for the school year. You're a member of parliament 365 days a year, because the country doesn't stop running.
Right, and your constituents don't stop needing you, right? They need you to represent them.
So this like, you know, as we used to, you know, criticize the old Toronto Maple Leafs, you know, this Muskoka Cottage attitude, where they only show up when they feel like it. That's what it means. When some of these MPs are talking about, well, you know, I don't really feel like showing up in the summer. There's things to do. I can be out, you know, with my constituents, or I could be out, you know, on the beach. I could be out on vacation. I'd rather do that. I'd rather not actually do work and go to committee. I don't care. You work for me. I didn't get a vacation request. You work for me and everybody in Canada. So get your ass to committee. You guys don't want to put in the work? Fine. Canadians are going to remember that when you go to the polls. So, like, this is the thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to the NDP and the Liberals. They're so concerned about Canadians not voting for them that they do everything possible to make sure the Canadians don't want to vote for them.
Yeah, it's just beyond comprehension. Like, they've burned the house down, and now they're like stomping the ashes. Like, it makes no sense.
So I'm really glad that that Mr. Brock made that point, because it's a very, very, very important one. And as he said, you know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, Larry Brock, no doubt, drives. So he's from Brantford, so he drives about 6 hours.
Yeah, it's probably 5.5, 6 hours if I had to guess.
It's not the greatest drive, you know,
especially on the 401.
Well, and you know, taking the 407 and all of this stuff. So it's not great. So, but he does it. He doesn't complain about it. He's there. Cooper, he's from Edmonton. He's there. So, like, I don't want to hear it. $400 million.
Well, and you do what you have to do, right? When you're in a leadership position, such as an MP, you have to lead by example, and you have to do what you have to do, and you have to show your constituents that you care, that the issues that are important to them are also important to you. And right now, the only ones in that committee that are showing that those issues are important were the Conservatives. Everybody else is like, oh, it can wait till September.
Well, and if you're not willing to do that when it's necessary, then you shouldn't do the job. I've had jobs where I've been called on every single holiday during a single year. At one point, I took my son to a Father's Day event. I was called on Father's Day. He was sitting at the table eating French fries while I was working. Was I pissed off about it? Yeah. But that's the job I chose. And if I didn't like it, I should get another job then, shouldn't I? But you accept that when you take these positions. And if it's too hard, like Justin Trudeau, says, well, being a politician is kind of tough. Oh, poor baby.
Well, then Canadians will make sure that you're not a politician anymore.
Right. No problem. So after all of the shenanigans, there was more dialogue between, Vilmur, which we didn't show, more dialogue between Massey, he gets a little annoyed. And there were some threats from Perkins that he made to Massey because, he just reiterated, I thought we had an agreement here, and Massey starts bringing up, these conversations that we have. You want to talk about all the back channel stuff in front of everybody? Fine, we're willing to do that. You want to talk about that? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about all the back channel stuff between the Libs and the NDP.
So, but what this resulted in, to nobody's surprise, is that everybody except the Conservatives were in favor of delaying the meetings until the 16th
of September.
But the meeting will take place. So as everything worked out through the amendments and all of this stuff, where this ended up was there will be one meeting during the week of September 16th when Parliament resumes. That's a 3-hour session, 1 hour with the Ethics Commissioner and 2 hours with Annette Verschuren.
And remember, Canadians, that there was $400 million misappropriated, and the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc think that this issue can wait until September. The Conservatives were the only party that were pressing to have a meeting. They initially wanted it within the first 2 weeks, but they were willing to settle for the next 4 weeks. But everybody else thinks it can wait till September. And this is while the funds have been unfrozen. So who knows if more money is going to be going out the door.
And they seem to think that Canadians aren't paying attention to this right now, aren't watching this right now. Well, we got a message for you. Good luck with that misunderstanding and misreading of the Canadian interest in this story.